time for another edition of Mase in Your Face.
Yes, it is.
Now, along with college football immortality, Glen Mason, here's Dan Barrero.
Jack's Cafe helps bring Glen Mason to the masses each and every week on the Bumper to Bumper program. We are contractually obligated to have you on the air between 4 and 5 every Wednesday.
You have to put it that way.
Does that seem negative?
Yeah. Really. You disappoint me, though, because...
Well, that wouldn't be the first time, would it?
I knew you'd take a shot like that when I was sitting...
I don't want to get your cold, by the way.
You know what? A lesser man probably wouldn't be here today, but...
Tough guy, huh? Tough guy.
I don't feel bad. I've got one of those things.
You just sound it. It's like a head cold.
I don't have my normal golden voice.
No, you don't. It's a little bit more nasally than usual. Yeah,
and I've been staying away. People don't want to be around me anyway. But,
yeah, well, I have that
you
problem
took a shot
myself.
while I was in the.
I did.
In the
what was the shot?
In the, as I call it, the kitchen back here.
The kitchen where he's got all his food.
And I thought you'd be a little bit nicer when I came in there, but you just boom, you went right there the same way. The only reason you're talking to me is because you have to do it because you're obligated by a contract.
Here is the toss-up question regarding Lane Kiffin. Curious to know, writes 612 guy, if Glen Mason has ever done hot yoga like Lane Kiffin does.
No, but I've been thinking about doing it. I don't even know what hot yoga is, I do cold yogurt in the morning with some granola on it.
That's different.
I probably should. I know that stuff is good for you.
It's supposed to be.
Flexibility and all that stuff. I know he is really dedicated to it, I don't know if that cleans his system out of all that other stuff that he's put in.
What do you mean by that?
Other years. Well, he's had some issues.
You think he has?
Well, you don't get fired on the tarmac at USC, and then outstanding citizen.
I mentioned this to Guardsy yesterday. We talked about it briefly with him, but I got to get your view on it because when the debate broke out about whether Kiffin should be allowed to coach Ole Miss through the tournament, I was surprised at the number of media jackals, despite, them being critical of Kiffin previously, who said, absolutely. The players want him to do it. The school should rise above that and absolutely let him play that out. I just don't think that's practical. What? Now, you're a coach, though, so you tell me. I think
this is a different situation because there's a good chance they're going to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, so I think if it wasn't that, a lot of people say, who cares? He either coaches or doesn't coach. But if Ole Miss says he can't coach, and the committee, in their infinite wisdom, uses that as an excuse not to let them in the tournament, they're punishing the players.
No question. Yes.
Remember, I think it was Florida State when the quarterback got injured, and they used that as an excuse not to let them in a 4-team playoff. So I don't know. I mean, it's a delicate situation. They had an unbelievable year. Obviously, he's a big part of it, but the players are a bigger part of it. And in this day and age of the college football playoff, if it was a 4-team playoff, it'd even be worse, if they were on the edge of getting in or not. But maybe Ole Miss isn't going to get in again in the near future. So I hope that the committee, they look at it like you should look at it and say, our first concern's for the players, and they should be in, with or without Lane Kiffin. And I personally, I'm not sure he wanted to coach anyway in that
Despite
game.
What he said.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll tell you, I don't know this, but I was of the belief from day one he was going to LSU. And all this stuff delaying it. Oh, it's such a tough decision. I'm not buying that.
Is there... There's been a lot of talk about what needs to change is the college schedule in a way that then we avoid these kinds of very, very difficult, challenging circumstances where something like this might arise. Do you buy that?
I think the whole thing is broke. I do. I mean, not only this, but the problem that you have, everybody's not on the same schedule. I know that back when I was coaching, you didn't have the NIL and the portal and stuff. But you had the signing date. And a lot of people wanted to push it back. Well, the Southern team said, well, we can't do that. We start spring practice early. Well, we don't start spring practice up north because it's too cold. And so, you can't please everybody. So true. I think you got to look at it. And when you set the schedule, I think you got to do what's good for the game. And then if it doesn't fit someone's normal schedule, they've just got to adjust. Dan, the other thing is I hear a lot of people, they want to talk about this portal. And they say, well, why shouldn't the players be able to do it? Coaches have done it forever. And that's true. But the one mistake people make that I always talked about, in pro football, and I heard Nick Saban kind of talk about it, in pro football, a contract's a contract. In other words, if you sign a contract with a team, let's say you sign a contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers for $1 million a year, 5-year contract, if they fire you after 1 year, they owe you $4 million. And unless they let you out of the contract, you're not going anywhere. Well, the difference, all the contracts in college are different. I never had a buyout any place that I've been. And someone might say, oh, yeah, because you always wanted to go some other place. I never went any other place. I thought it was wrong. My issue was always every place I was. You want a buyout, you can have one. Here's the deal. If you sign me to a 5-year contract and you fire me after 1 year, you owe me $4 million. Mm-hmm. If I leave after 1 year, I owe you $4 million. And that's a contract. But you know what? Schools don't want to do that. They want to look at the downside.
Right.
And they want to say, well, how can we mitigate our damages and get out of this? We don't like you. So they pay you a fraction of that.
Kiffin had sent out a statement 3 days ago, I think, confirming, after a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. And within that release, or within that statement, he also says, my request to do so regarding to finish, and coach the team in the postseason was denied by Keith Carter. Is that the AD? Keith Carter. Despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them. Now, what's interesting is today, I believe this was today, a member of the team, Bryson Sanders, who I think is an offensive lineman, took that part of the quote, despite the team asking me to keep coaching, and said this: I think everyone that was in that room would disagree, which was pretty interesting. Now, he's not the last word, but that's in of itself, I thought, kind of interesting.
Well, I don't know, but I would speculate. I would side on the side of the player, because typically, those players, they have a lot of pride.
Sure. And
they're getting shunned. When the coach says, well, I'm leaving, I'm going to a different place, they don't like that. It's, well, how about us? Mm-hmm. You've told us this is the best place to go. You've recruited us. You told us we could win a national championship. Why are you going to LSU, especially when you say, I don't make decisions on money? I find it interesting that he said he had to pray on it. He has to define praying because he called Nick Saban and Pete Carroll. I didn't know those guys. I didn't know those.
They're deities.
Yeah, I didn't know they were connected that way.
It's a very good point. Well, I mentioned in there, I don't know if you were still in the room, I went through this covering the Georgia national championship team in 80. Back then, as you know, it was basically rankings is how you picked, and they were undefeated that year. It was Herschel Walker's freshman year. So Auburn, they finished the regular season, Georgia, undefeated. They're going to play Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, okay? In between, Auburn has fired its coach. They're looking for a new coach. That's where Dooley went to school. Mm-hmm. They come after Vince Dooley. And there were, a lot of rumors that he was going to take the job, but then it was the same situation about, would he coach them in the national championship game, whatever. Well, I can still remember.
He was also the AD, too.
I don't know if he was then. He might have been, but he became that for sure. Regardless, I remember him talking to the reporters, me included, saying, it was uncomfortable because I definitely did talk to Auburn. Ultimately, he chose to stay. Mm-hmm. But he said, I talked to the players about it, and I asked them whether they want me back. Because I did flirt with a rival school in the opposition. And Dooley claimed that the response he got from the players was resounding in his favor. Now, I later found out that nobody said anything in the room. It wasn't quite the way it had been described. The players like, yeah, coach, we're back. Let's get this thing done. It was just an uncomfortable sort of silence. So it just goes to show you it doesn't always go the way the coach wants to believe it would go in that circumstance. Because as you say, players, they think like you're either with us or you're against us, right?
Well, I tell you how it went for me. You mentioned Georgia.
Yes.
I took the Georgia.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
And we had a great season at Kansas. And we were off to play UCLA in the bowl game. And before we were going to leave, I interviewed for the Georgia job. And I didn't think I was going to get it, but I got it. Mm-hmm. I took it. And but Vince Dooley told me that the athletic director at Kansas, one of the things he requested was if they hired me, that he'd still let me coach the bowl game. And so Vince Dooley says, I told him you can do that, so you can do that. So I did. And probably if he would have said no, I think I probably would have taken the job. I would have went to Georgia because I couldn't have gone back to Kansas. I would have had a job. But I changed my mind, and I talked to the team the morning we were going to play UCLA. And I didn't know how they'd react because a lot of them weren't really happy with, I can tell you that, that I was leaving.
Sure, yeah.
No confrontations, but you can tell, And so in my pregame meeting, no one knew except me. And I went over a bunch of stuff. And lastly, I said, I'm staying at Kansas, not leaving. And I got a standing ovation, which was that happened. I'm telling, and maybe because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm, sure,
I didn't know if I might say, boo.
Yeah, right, for sure.
And then it didn't hurt that we really hung it on UCLA, and everybody was happy.
So, Kiffin, do you accept now? I mean, his history is his history, right? And it's checkered. I mean, there's no way around that. Somebody mentioned, we talked about this, I think, the last day or two. He's never played or he's never won a postseason game at any level, despite his relative success. Certainly at Ole Miss, he succeeded, but.
He's 4-4 in bowls, isn't he?
Yeah, you might have the record.
Yeah, but like a big time
big game. I don't think he's ever won one. Now, I'm not suggesting that means he can't coach, but do you buy? Because in the earlier years you were on this show, you had a lot of Lane Kiffin shots that you took.
I did? I don't remember.
Yeah, well,
I don't regret it.
I'm not ripping you.
I'm not a fan of Lane.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I'm not ripping. Have you come to a different place on him just on the basis of performance, or do you still feel the same way?
I've come to a different place on college football. You heard me a number of times. Yeah. It's shot. It's broken with all the stuff that's going on. And I can tell you that one of the things, the prerequisites in hiring coaches, most often, not all the time, most often, is integrity. They don't consider that. It's all about winning. That's all it is. And is it going to win the press conference? Or are they going to? Are the fans are going to like it? When you look at Lane Kiffin as an assistant, he got hired by the Raiders. Got fired in 1 year.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
And Al Davis called him a fraud and wasn't going to pay him. Now Al Davis had fired a lot of coaches and paid him. He had no problem.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to pay him. Then he gets the Tennessee job. I don't know how he gets that. He left in the middle of the night after 1 year. And then he goes to USC. That's why he left Tennessee. And he gets fired out there. Okay? And then he goes to Alabama.
Rehab.
St. Nick, I'm going to call him that now,
right.
Resurrected him. He pried and Nick showed up and he hired him. And then he was there, and then he went to FAU as the head coach. Nick didn't like it. He fired him and let him coach that ball game.
Which is ironic, is it not?
It's interesting that Nick says he should coach the bowl game, but he wouldn't let him coach at Alabama. I didn't think about that.
Well, has he been called? Has anybody asked him that contradiction? Has he responded?
I don't know.
He's St. Nick.
And then he gets the Ole Miss job, which was unbelievable, and he did a great job there. And then he gets the LSU and job. But my point being, it used to be those are good jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be to get one of those jobs, you needed to win and an impeccable record. If you had a drunk driving, whatever, you were done. Wouldn't even think about it. And now you look what's going on. It's just amazing. I applaud Michigan State with all the problems that they've had up there. They don't know the left foot from the right foot. Hire Pat Fitzgerald. I don't know if he'll be good up there or not.
Yeah.
I really like Pat Fitzgerald. He did a heck of a job. I don't think Northwestern could have ever hired a better coach, and what they did to him was wrong, and that's why he won the lawsuit. He's dealing with a different animal up there. I guarantee you, the players that he'll deal with up there at Michigan State are a lot different than the guys that used to walk through the door at Northwestern. It's just the way it is. But I remember when we played Arkansas in the bowl game, and Frank Broyles was the athletic director.
Former coach.
What's that?
Former coach as well.
Former coach.
Yeah, right.
And, he retired at the top of his career, he and Darryl Royal at Texas, when they were like 52 years old. So we were at a cocktail party, both teams, and I was there talking to him. And I said, Coach Broyles, can I ask you a personal question? I'm just curious. I said, why did you retire at such an early age? Because he's in good health.
Yeah,
He was still,
right.
And he looked at me and he said, Coach, I learned a long time ago. He says, if you retire at the top of your game, you can live a real nice life. If you're a major college football coach and you get fired, you're damaged fruit for the rest of your life. That's not the case anymore. Everybody has short memories.
That's true.
And to think, what's happening here, is crazy. And what's happening in college, I heard what Lane Kiffin said. I don't believe him. But he said, I told Jimmy Sexton, his agent, I don't even want to know about what they're offering me at all these schools. That's not important. I just want to know what they're going to offer, the money they're going to have available for the players. Mm-hmm. So what are we talking about? I mean, it's a championship team. It's like Major League Baseball. If you got enough money, you can buy the good players.
Sort of where it is. I'm glad you brought up Pat Fitzgerald because we have not talked about that. So what's the moral of the Pat Fitzgerald saga? It looked to me like he did have some vulnerability in terms of, you've always said to me, most stuff that happens in your organization, coaches know or is their responsibility. I think that's the way you tended to look at it, with some exception. And it looked really bad for him. But was that, when we look back on it, was it just became a feeding frenzy and he ends up getting blamed for more than he should have? Why now is he able to get another job when back then I don't think anybody thought he was ever going to get another position? Is that short memory again, or new information telling us it wasn't quite as bad as it appeared?
Well, first of all, on a couple counts, you're right. I was a big Pat Fitzgerald fan. I coached against him. Then when I did Big Ten Network, you'd be in there and you get an idea how a guy runs a program when you're in there for a couple of days. And I was in there multiple times. I was shocked when the accusation came out, but you don't know. I always said, right. That's why you get paid the big bucks. You're supposed to know. Now, I ran into Trevor Simeon, who a pro football player who was there, and I asked him about this situation. He goes, hey, I was there 4 years. It's baloney. I don't know where they came up with it. He said, I'm telling you, he's as fine a guy. That didn't happen. If something happens, blown way out of proportion. Now, the other point is that I think he was vindicated when he won the big lawsuit. Yeah. Northwestern, they don't have to pay those legal bills. Those, they got in-house guys. When they roll over and settle for, was it $50 million?
I don't remember the number.
That was a big number. I think they probably said, you know what, we don't have a chance here.
Yeah.
They settled.
That's usually what it means.
Hey,
correct.
Settled.
Yes.
They're afraid why this goes in front of a jury. Man, we might be paying more money. So I am really glad that the guy surfaced. And, Michigan State, it's really been bad. Ever since they got rid of D'Antonio, come on, it's been terrible. One thing after another thing after another, on the field, off the field, administration, the whole deal. I think they needed a guy that had some credibility, probably a guy that the non-athletic people at the university, the academics said, you know what, this guy's a class guy. We can trust this guy.
Let me ask you a national championship question now that it's a tournament, the way it's set up today. So a good example is obviously the Big Ten title game will match your Ohio State against Indiana.
Why isn't your Indiana? Why isn't my Ohio State?
It's my Indiana. No, I've made that clear. It's my Indiana. It's your Ohio State. You're right. You went there. I went to IU. But here's what's interesting to me. As a coach, how do you view, because if you know, both of those teams know they're in the tournament, right? Regardless, now seeding might be affected, but they're both going to participate to try to win a national championship beyond the Big Ten title game. So does that change? So I guess what I'm saying is the bigger prize is winning it all, right?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Than winning the Big Ten title. So that being the case, does that, if you're in that position, coaching your team, does it change the way how much emphasis you put on this game? Because let's say you lose it. And there's, Indiana's, I think last I saw, 5-point underdogs. Let's say they lose it. Let's say they lose by 14. Okay. Well, you don't want to lose your team because the larger issue is still you got a chance to make amends. So does that mean as a coach you de-emphasize the significance of the game? How do you approach it?
No, I don't think you de-emphasize it, but here's the thing. You look at Ohio State, they lost to Michigan. They're sitting at home. They're watching the game on TV.
That's right.
But they win it all. So did losing to Michigan mean anything? Did not playing for the Big Ten title, not winning the big title mean anything? It brings back what's happened with this college football playoff. We've minimized the regular season. It used to be without a playoff, if you wanted to be considered, you better win them all or maybe lose only one. Otherwise, you were gone. You were done. It was over, public opinion. Brings me back to a story. When I was at Kansas, the basketball coach was Larry Brown. And in '88, they won the national championship. I forget what happened. I think they might have got beat in the first round of the Big 8 tournament. But he told me one time, I never want to win that Big 8 tournament. I want to lose and get out as fast as I can. I said, why? He says, you got to win too many games in a row. The important thing is the big dance. So get out. So
there's some truth to that. Yes.
You could be the team that doesn't get in as long as you're getting in the college football playoff. And now you're resting, you're preparing, you're getting everything going, and you don't have to worry about anybody injured.
Yeah.
So
that's true. That's been in the basketball side of it's been true, I think, for a long time. The old deal of conference tournaments, who cares? No one's going to remember it. But is it? Do you buy the notion? Because I keep hearing this, that there are people in Ohio, the state of Ohio, who still believe that it's more important to beat Michigan than even to win the national championship. Is that true? I'm not saying they should think that way, but are there idiots who think that way?
I don't know if they're idiots or not. It's easy for you to say that.
Well, pretty close. I mean, don't you want to win the whole thing?
If you let me finish, you asked the question. You had to throw the idiots in there, so I had to respond to that.
Yeah, that's it. Well,
I think that would be the older generation that grew up. I used to have these conversations with Jerry DiNardo all the time. He absolutely couldn't comprehend it. The emphasis that was put on that game. Now, I lived it.
Yeah,
I lived it as a player. I lived it as a coach. And that game meant everything. Now, typically, it was translated to go into the Rose Bowl. Now, I'm sure you might be able to find some old-timers, Big Ten schools, that said, in the old day, would you rather go to the Rose Bowl or would you rather be in the college football playoffs? I'd rather go to the Rose Bowl. You look at Indiana. If there's no college football playoff, they're going to Pasadena.
That's true.
They're there because they hadn't been there since '67. So I think there are some people like that. I think it's changing because especially what happened last year. Now, I said this one time before. I really believe if they hadn't expanded the college football playoff to 12 teams, I don't think Ryan Day be the coach of Ohio State right now.
I agree with you on that.
4 straight losses? Yeah. No. And he wouldn't have been in a 14 playoff? That wouldn't have been the case.
Can't survive that. So what chance do you give my Hoosiers?
Good.
Ohio State's really good.
Yeah, I think the Hoosiers are really good. I mean, they've proven in good game, and people that they're supposed to beat, man, did they beat them. You think about the Purdue, what they scored, 53 points or something like that?
No, I think it was 56. Yeah, 56 to 3, whatever it was. It was in the 50s.
56 to 3. Yeah. Right. 56 to 3. I think they got all the ingredients when I've watched them play. They got a quarterback that I think, how about this? I think he should win the Heisman Trophy. I think either he, how about this, or the quarterback down at Vanderbilt. Those are the 2 greatest stories in college football right now. Those 2 guys. But when you look at statistically and everything with the Mendoza kid, he's superior to the kid at Ohio State, except the kid at Ohio State plays for Ohio State. And just the perception. But he got a real good quarterback. He got good receivers. They run the ball. They got a very efficient offensive line. They play aggressive defense. Yeah, I think it'll be a heck of a game. Well, and you know what can happen in any game.
For sure.
You can win the game. More often than not, you lose the game. Turnover, interception, mistake, whatever it may be.
The counter I'm getting via text is the loser of the Big Ten title game will likely have to play an extra game. The winner will get a first-round bye. I've heard people say both, unless Indiana loses by 40 or something like that both teams, regardless of who wins or loses this game, both those teams still should merit a bye in the first round.
Yeah, because if you look at it, let's either one. Let's say they lose by a field goal.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And now they have one loss. Well, what other one-loss team has a better record or that than them?
A better quality loss too. You're right. Yeah.
So I think that I don't think that's what the committee would really like, but it'll be interesting how this plays out with these 12 teams. Does Notre Dame get in?
Yeah, I think they're in.
You look at Texas. What, they have 3 losses? He's politicking to get in. How does he get in with 3 losses?
Yeah.
Now he talks about the teams that he beat, but he doesn't want to talk about the teams he lost to.
That's the fatal flaw.
And that discussion minimizes the regular season even more.
Let's get our bottom of the hour pause. Lots more to get to with Mase in your face. We'll get his reaction to the Gophers knocking off the Wisconsin Badgers in one of several snow globe games in the Big Ten. It felt like almost all of the outdoor games were in snowy, kind of aesthetically pleasing conditions for those of us who grew up with outdoor football. And Mase has usually got a couple things stuck in his craw as well. Brought to you by our good friends at Jack's Cafe. More Mase next.
The Friday football feast is at Buffalo Wild Wings in Savage this week. P.A. Nordo and Alec Lewis. Young Alec are live with nonstop football talk and your shot at prizes all morning. The doors open at 8. You can get the full details at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Apologize for my clock management issues. Mase in your face, part 2. If you have questions for Mase, Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686. Gophers finish with a 17-7 victory over the Badgers. Before we get to your reaction to that and then the overall feelings about the Gophers season, I don't know if we've talked about this before over the years. I'm not saying I always want to see every game played in wintry conditions, okay? I get the people who say, well, you don't really see the best of the players all the times in those conditions. But I will tell you, and maybe it's I'm very romantic, as you know. And maybe it's the romantic in me, the sentimental in me, that grew up with, football in those conditions and said, I loved watching a series of games over the weekend in the Big Ten in which the snow and cold and wind were all part of the deal. Did you like coaching in those kinds of conditions?
I did. Yeah, I thought it was part of the deal. I was a traditionalist, so to speak. When I was advocating for an outdoor stadium, a lot of people would say, you're crazy. We're in Minnesota. I said, wait a minute. the weather in Minnesota, my belief, isn't much different up until about Thanksgiving than it is in Lansing, Michigan, or Ann Arbor, or Lincoln, Nebraska, or whatever. And the proof of that, we had snow here. Who didn't have snow?
Yeah, absolutely.
The two worst games, snow games, the most blizzard-type conditions that I coached in, was one when I was a player at Ohio State against Purdue, next to last week, and lucky we won. Then we won the next week against Michigan. And then when I was at Kansas, we played in two blizzard games, one in Boulder, Colorado, and one in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Oh,
go figure.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. And was it like blizzard kind of conditions, just like wind and...
Yeah, it was both those games, especially in Stillwater. It wasn't that cold, but they were windy and snowy, and, to the place where you couldn't see the field. I mean, it was... and remarkably, the play was pretty good. It wasn't too sloppy, which is amazing.
All right, Gophers. Wisconsin had actually shown a little life. I think they knocked off a couple of ranked teams. Defensively, they were pretty good, actually, much of the season. They just couldn't get much going offensively. And it turned the game that Guardsy was at was a snow globe game for sure. Guardsy and I haven't talked about it much. So... Wisconsin cuts it to 10-7 on that late reversal on the touchdown pass that replay called good after it had been called incomplete.
Right before the half.
Right before the half, literally. So it's 10-7. Wisconsin gets the ball to start the second half, I think with the backup QB, right? Or the second QB, Guardsy. And he's winging it like he's Joe Montana. I mean, he's just winging it, and they're going right down the field until...
Interception.
He gets undercut on a not a very good throw. And it wasn't a pick six, but it was close, and everything changed, I thought, from that point forward. I thought the Gophers might have been in a little bit of trouble at that point if Wisconsin had followed that through and scored, but they didn't. So what did you make of the game, and what do you make of the season for the Gophers?
Good questions. I think it was an okay season. I think anytime that it's not really hard to get bowl eligible, or if you don't get bowl eligible, it's a bad year. But they played well at home, not too well on the road. In the most part, they beat the teams they should have beat. Didn't beat the teams that, probably were better than them. And I didn't see that entire game. I was busy out east. But to me, it was amazing. Statistics, Guardsy, like I always tell you, figures lie and liars figure, can be misleading, but when you look at the stats of that game, you would have thought Wisconsin would have won the football game with the exception of 3 turnovers. Now, that's part of the game.
You're right.
It is. But Minnesota's offense, with a quarterback that I think is pretty good, they really don't have a lot of offense. I mean, I think they had like less than 220 yards total offense. I think my concern, if I was PJ Fleck, which I'm not, is our inability to run the football. Which has been quite consistent on almost every occasion, with the exception, I think, of maybe one. But, it was okay. I think that, I don't know what's happened to the Wisconsin program. I thought Luke Fickell was a home run hire. And right now, you talk about a guy that's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I mean, he got to win. I'm not saying he's got to win big, but he needs a good season next year. They've grown impatient there from what they're used to, and he's not the only one. I think that Mike Loxley at Maryland's on the hot seat, and I think Greg Schiano at Rutgers is on the hot seat. You go a certain time, and then people want to know why you're not Indiana, whatever, and they don't look at themselves, and something happens.
They got to get. I mean, Wisconsin still is about. You got to get a quarterback, right? And I don't know who they have. They got one in the hopper.
I mean, they were down to number 4, I think, weren't they, or something? I don't know. He went in there and he, everybody overuses the word culture, but he systematically he changed them. You know, everybody knows what Wisconsin's been for a long time. Big offensive lineman, and you can't stop the run. You got a long play action pass. You know, when too long ago, I forget they Wisconsin ran for over 500 yards against Nebraska in the Big Ten championship game. which is kind of crazy.
Do you think there's any contract extension remorse in Lincoln? I think ultimately I think Nebraska finished with below 500 in the conference. I think they finished 4-5. So I think you're a Matt Rule guy. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but honestly,
I base guys on what they've done.
Yeah.
And I saw what he did at Temple, and I thought what he did at Baylor in just a terrible, terrible situation was unbelievable. I discount pro football because that's a different bird. But when they hired him out there, I thought, I really did. I said, if this guy can't turn it around, no one's ever going to turn it around out there. I don't think anybody's going to get him back to the days of the 90s with 3 national championships and the days where they just rolled over everybody with Tom Osborne. The Big 8 conference, which people can't remember, I can. Mm-hmm. That's a different bird, And
big time, yeah.
There was different rules and regulations in the Big 8 that made them pretty darn successful.
Texter, this is from 763 guy. Wants your thoughts on getting rid of the conference championship games, going to a 16-team playoff, starting the week after the season, and salary cap of $25 million, and players only can use portal once unless the head coach or position coaches leave.
Obviously, it's well thought out. It's sounds like you need a collective bargaining agreement to get that done. It sounds like pro football.
Yeah, right.
I would not be opposed to getting rid of the conference championship game. If you go the whole way, you're playing 16 games. Ohio State played 50 because they didn't play in the championship game, but 16 games. If you're one of those teams that's in it just about every year, and I think it's meaningless. Play the regular season. When I talk about this all the time. When I went to Ohio State, we played 9 games, and then it was 10, and then it was 11, and then after I was done coaching, it went to 12. And along with that, you used to have to be pretty darn good to get a bowl game. Everybody gets a bowl game now. It's crazy. Hey, how about this though? You don't think Jimmy Sex is a good agent? Lane Kiffin's going to get his bowl bonus from Ole Miss.
Somebody texted us that. Yes, right.
That's some good negotiating right there.
Well, everybody tells me he is the most powerful man in college football. There's
I don't think
not any coach. He's the guy.
Yeah, I don't think that. You know what? I think I talked the story about this. He went to Tennessee, and Reggie White, and were good friends. Reggie White was a great football player. When they knew each other in the dorm. When he got drafted, he went to Jimmy. He said, "Jimmy, I want you to represent me." He said, "What do you think?" You're the smartest guy that I know, and he was right. But
that's been proven.
In the SEC, he's got about every coach under contract.
What's the percentage he gets, by the way? Is
3%.
3%.
Yeah.
So 3% of these deals, that's pretty good. Yeah. He's doing okay.
You think?
I think he's doing all right.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, he's not. He's not worrying where he's getting his next meal.
All right,
and if he gets endorsements, I think he gets 10.
Oof, pretty good gig if you can get it. More. I know Mace's got a couple things stuck in his craw. A couple of their texts to get to as well in our final segment with him. Top 5 at 5 and Kessler yet to come out at 6. Gargi, is this breaking college football news? Texter 952 guy. Iowa coach Kirk Ferentz, the nation's longest tenured coach in the FBS, will return in 2026 for a 28th season with the Hawkeyes. Ferentz, 70, confirmed his expected return today, telling reporters he has the support of his wife, Mary, and is in good health. In September, he surpassed Ohio State's Woody Hayes for the most coaching wins at a Big Ten school. So that must have, I guess it was not surprising necessarily, but now confirming that he's coming back next year. What do you think, Mase?
Yeah, and he talked about it at their signing day press conference today.
Okay, that's how it came up.
He was doing media, and it came up, and he said, I expect to be back.
Yeah. Well, it happens to use against you in recruiting, say, when you go there, Kirk's not going to be there.
Right.
Yeah, right after signing date, he's in a good. Hey, I got to tell you one thing before I forget, though. I like things that are reliable. You know that. And
that's why you like me.
That's right. Reliably...
unreliable,
unprofessional.
Are you not? That's uncalled for.
But anyway, I traveled over the holiday and I had an early morning flight. And when you have our man Todd Anderson, when Carrie Limo, supposed to pick you up at 4:30 a.m.
He's there.
About 4:15, they're there, and you don't have to sweat it because in the past, before I was dealing with those guys, you'd have one of those early morning flights. You weren't sure,
correct?
And the guy get lost or whatever, and now I don't worry about it.
I had a couple more texts. Do you have something on your list that we haven't covered yet?
I got
we can
one.
get to that
Well,
first
of all, talking about coaches.
Yeah.
What is going on at Penn State?
What do you mean?
They were the first guy to fire somebody.
Yeah.
And they still haven't hired a coach?
They're making it a very thorough search.
Thorough? Signing date, I think, was today. It's crazy. Pat Kraft, the AD, who I don't know, they got to be pulling their hair out there. I think the way to go, if you're contemplating firing your coach, and I think they were with James Franklin, or they wouldn't have done it in season, you like to see what they do at Michigan State. Boom, boom. The deal was done with Pat Fitzgerald. Probably thinking if we don't get this guy, we're not going to fire that guy. But you see more of that now. You got to move quickly. There's too much at stake. And if you put a big committee together and they can't make a decision, the only thing I can figure, are they waiting for a pro guy that has to wait until his contract's done? I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
That's true. Jonathan writes, my alma mater is a local college currently looking for a new college football coach. What characteristics does Mase believe are most needed characteristics for a college coach to possess? And how much is your answer today different than it might have been 10 years ago?
Well, you'd have to tell me the situation
the level
that you're in. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought that if it's a program that's been struggling that needs to be turned around, if you can find somebody that's been part of one of those programs that understands it, that's not going to be a victim of knee-jerk reaction every time you hit a bump in the road, they change direction. Because there are going to be lots of bumps in the road. And all too often, you see what happens is whoever's making a decision hires a guy that's going to win the press conference. And then a couple years later, they're going through the same thing again.
Any names come to mind?
No, not at all.
No.
No.
There's not somebody top of your head?
No, I was talking about a program that had to be turned around.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Turned around. Jeff in Monticello, Dan, to keep on the football theme, to Mase, I would ask, how much longer can P.J. Fleck keep his job? After 9 years, he's 39-40 in the Big Ten. This year, he beat 5 Big Ten teams with an overall record of 9-36. No wins against teams with winning records. Or does he just keep coaching because things will never change at the University of Minnesota? Your thoughts?
Well, I hear that a lot. People say that to me, and I'll say, okay, if you're tired of PJ, who are you going to get? Who are you going to get better than him? Tell me that. In this culture and everything, who are you going to get? And they have no answer. Now, they might come up with an answer. Oh, we could have got Lane Kiffin. No, you can't get Lane Kiffin, and I wouldn't hire him anyway. But my point is,
no, you wouldn't.
You have to be realistic. And the thing that makes it even tougher is some of these salaries at some of these places where assistant coaches are making some guys are thinking, I think I'm going to stay here as assistant coach at $2 million a year, and I don't have all the headaches. My phone's not ringing. Bad game. I'm not going to the press conference. I mean, there's some guys thinking about that.
Did you know Monty Kiffin at all?
I do. Yeah, I've known Monty for a long, long time. I knew Monty when I was at Iowa State, and he was the defensive coordinator at Nebraska. And I thought Monty was just a gem of a guy.
Everybody,
really.
It's the old deal of, the contrast.
Yeah.
And look, not everybody's wired the same, but I mean, you can't get any different, I don't think, from a personality standpoint between Monty Kiffin and Lane, can you?
I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
When I was out of coaching, and, the Southeast Conference, all those towns, they have a thing where they have a Monday quarterback club, and it's a big thing.
Yes.
And they look to get a different guy. So I was available being a former Big Ten coach. So I made the rounds at a lot of those places. Mm-hmm. And I spoke at the one in Knoxville. And it was really good. Then I went over to their facility where they were. And I walked in. And Monty he wasn't around, but I walked in. And I identified myself to Lane Kiffin's secretary. And I said, I know he's busy. I'll like just say hello to him. So she got up, she went in there, and she came back. She said, he's too busy. I said, no problem. Okay.
Are you nuts?
So now we know why you don't like him.
No. So then I'm walking down the hall. Who did I run into? I run into Monty. Hey, no, you know how Monty is,
Yes.
And he said, did you say hello to Lane? And I said, well, I stopped by there, but his secretary said he was too busy. He said, he did, huh? He walked in, He walked the office. He walked right in there, closed the door. I heard him reaming him in there. Who do you think you are? And a couple minutes later, Lane came out and he said, "Oh, Coach, I didn't know you were here. Come on in. Can I get you a cup of coffee?" We sat down and talked. But that's the other.
Mace in your face.
Lane Kiffin came back, tail between his legs, and suddenly he had time for
Dad
it.
tore him a new one.
Yeah. Well, obviously, he spent a lot of time here. I mean, but he's one of those. He isn't. I always think about the game of football as being that Monty Kiffin is like one of those glue guys where you know what I'm saying, where they make the whole thing go around because he was a million places, just a good, solid football guy and assistant coach, correct? At all levels.
Well, there's a lot of guys that play football and there's a lot of guys that like football. Mm-hmm. There's a few guys that love football. I mean, love it. Okay, and I could tell you the ones that have played for me that were like that. And then in this day and age, more and more, you have two types of coaches out there. You have guys that love to coach, and you have guys that love being the coach because of everything that goes with it. Okay? Well, Monty was one of those guys that really loved coaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, he thought and talked football 24/7, 365. And he always had time to sit down and be with you and do all those things. And I remember when, obviously I knew him when I was at Iowa State, but then he was at Arkansas, and I visited Arkansas, and he was down there for defensive coordinator for Lou Holtz. Mm-hmm. And that's when he used to smoke cigarettes nonstop and drink coffee, And as soon as he had a free moment, "Come here, I want to talk to you." Sit down. "What are you doing? You got anything going? Hey, I saw Michigan play. What are they?" He was great to be around. What a character.
He really was. Yeah, it's very, very true. We're late, but I'm going to throw one last one out and see if you can answer this fairly quickly. This is from lawyer Tom. 763 guy's idea would be nice, but it wouldn't work. Mase joked about a collective bargaining agreement, but that is actually what you would need to have a salary cap. Otherwise, you've got antitrust violations and problems, and you have no union to bargain with to get a CBA, and there's really no way to get a union of college players because there's too many possible members. And some of them aren't even legal adults, can't be held legally to a contract. So is that the answer? I mean, as much as you joke about a CBA, is that where we're headed? Almost out of necessity?
To the lawyer.
Lawyer Tom?
I'm not a lawyer, obviously.
Yeah.
I'd like to be a lawyer, though.
I'm sure you'd be a good
go after you big time. I want you to know that.
For what reason?
What do you call it? When you defame somebody? Huh?
You have to prove malice.
Well, I could prove it.
You think you could prove it? Yeah. And you might be able to.
I don't know how you do it, and that's the problem. Everybody knows the problem. Football
Nobody
is
knows
a
the
mess.
Solution. Yeah.
No one has any idea for the solution.
Well,
I kind of laugh a little bit when they say, "Oh, you know what we need? We need Saban to be the czar of football." Well, a lot of the things we were dealing with, Nick was a smart coach. He figured around, the reason why the staffs exploded the way they did, Nick figured a way around it. We used to have hard and fast regulations on staff. You could have a head coach, you could have 9 assistants, you could have an administrative assistant, recruiting coordinator, and 2 GAs. That was it. Well, he figured out in the weight room there's no limit. So he had unlimited GAs in the weight room working with every position.
Yeah.
I mean, I give him credit.
Yeah.
I wish I would have thought of that.
You weren't creative enough.
They wouldn't have let me do it.
No, not here. Not Mother Maturi.
Yeah.
Well, because they got stung. They got put on probation. Not you, but obviously the whole Clem deal. It made them run scared forever.
Yeah. Well.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I hope your cold gets better.
Do you really feel sorry for me?
Of course I do. I mean, but I don't think you're hurting that much. I think you sound worse than you feel.
I came here.
I just don't want to get what you have, and don't get near Kessler because he's a germaphobe.
Yeah.
He'll lose his mind.
I just want to tell you, I came here today not because I was contractually obligated. I came here because I'm committed.
Man, you are.
Are you not? To Dan Barrero and the Bumper and Bumper show. How's that?
Bumper to Bumper. What'd you say?
Changed the name.
Changed the name. Yeah, might as well. Have a good. We'll see you back here next week, or are you going back to Fargo?
No, I'll be
You'll
here.
You'll be here?
I think I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good enough. Hoosiers, Ohio State, pick the winner.
Hoosiers.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Hope you're right. Be kind of nice.
Who are you picking?
I'm picking Ohio State. Not a lack of faith. I just think I think they're good, but I have a hunch on Ohio State.
Every once in a while, I believe in Cinderella teams.
There's no question. It happens.
They have that. Be it.
They got a little of that stardust going. There's no question. They proved that at the end of the Penn State game.
Cinderella with the $3 million quarterback. Absolutely. It's just like Cinderella.
Yeah.
You know, will you quit crying?
Just like
He's
Cinderella.
mad
Hey,
because
let me tell you something. You're such a go. Get someone to belly up and get a $4 million
that's exactly
quarterback.
it.
Quit crying. Jeez.
I wasn't crying.
Oh,
Just
you
don't
were.
call it Cinderella.
Yes, you were.
Don't call it Cinderella.
Well, whatever it is, it's everybody's in Indiana's having a good time with it. That's for sure. Everyone else is doing it. If you can glom onto it, you do it, right?
You know what? You might not like it, but if you're going to play the game, that's the rules right now.
Top 5 will include
Vikings injury report. That's what we'll have time for.